So thank you everyone for joining in today. We will be talking about careers in psychology, the prospects in the field, and what psychology is, and where you could go with it if you have a degree, or if you do, or how to go ahead with your choice of courses if you do plan to have a career in the field. So before I start talking about, what psychology is, let's just clear out a few things about what psychology is not. So as a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a mental health professional, what I don't do, or any psychology person does not do, is tell you about your future or give you any magical solutions. Also, there's another thing to understand, that in psychology you do not, so there's no immediate money that you can start making as soon as you're done with your degrees. It's a very long road ahead, and you have to kind of endure a lot of opportunities, or you have to work in multiple projects to be able to earn enough. But it's nothing to worry about. You just have to be confident about your skills and knowledge, and you'll eventually get there. Some common myths around this field is that psychology as a career has limited career options, but you'll see by the end of this session that that is not true at all. That as somebody with a psychology degree can work in multiple settings, and there are way too many subfields that you can choose from. The other myth is that psychologists can read mind. So that's like the most common thing I get whenever I tell someone that I have a degree in psychology. All they ask is, can you read my mind, or can you tell me what I'm thinking? But that's just, that's not what we do. We cannot read mind. If I had that kind of superpower, I would, solve all social problems or all problems, but we can't do that. The other misconception around this field is that psychologists just focus on what is wrong with the people. So this is essentially to say that psychology as a field focuses only on mental illnesses, but that's not true at all. We have a whole field of positive psychology that focuses on positive aspects of human nature. So there's that. And then there are few who say psychology is just common sense. It's not. It's not as common as one might think. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so before jumping into the career prospects and how to reach there, let's start with understanding what psychology actually is. The word psychology basically literally means the study of soul or mind, and the textbook definition is that it can be defined as a scientific study of behavior and mental processes. Now this definition has three major aspects to the field. One is the scientific study. So what we want to do is we want to understand human behavior, but we want to do it scientifically so that generalizations can be made. That's one thing, which means we will follow a certain steps to understand and explain human behavior. Then the second part of this definition is behavior. That is the actions or responses that can be directly observed. So this is what we call overt behavior that you can actually see. And then there is mental processes, that refers to the internal thought process. So what I'm thinking is my mental process, my thought process, and what I can see, what you can see from my face would be a frown, or like, the eyebrows coming together to indicate that I'm actually thinking. So that's observable part of behavior. And the thought process is the mental process part of behavior that you cannot see, but can be observed. Can be measured using tools. Now, goals of psychology is, okay, so the first aspect to understanding anything is to describe what is happening. So the first step is to describe the behavior that you can see, what is happening, where is it happening, or how it is happening. For example, your teacher has observed a gradual drop in the average grade of your class. So that's a behavior that she has observed of her class. Then she tries to explain this behavior, as in why is it happening, assign an explanation to the observed behavior. So for example, she could say that to understand why the average grade is falling for class students, she could ask for feedback on her teaching methods. That's one thing she could do to understand why it's happening. The third goal is, when will it happen again? So is this behavior happened out of the blue, or is it going to happen again? So for this purpose, she will, let's say, based on the feedback that the students will provide, she predicts that if she makes her teaching style more interactive, students are likely to pay more attention, and they may end up scoring better next time. And then comes the controlling part. How can the behavior be changed or modified? To The idea is to change an undesirable behavior to a desirable one. So the teacher is able to control the average grade of the class by changing her teaching style so that students pay more attention. And that's how she gets a desirable outcome from the students. So the goals are description, explanation, prediction, and controlling. The next major debate around the field of psychology is whether it's a science or a social science. So obviously the people who are from science background, and when I say science background, I usually mean engineering or doctors or physics background, they would say that it's not a science because psychology, so while it follows a scientific method of study, it is not generalizable to so it is generalizable only to a certain extent. So let's say gravitational force, that is a hard science fact. Gravitational force works in all countries at any in any spot of this world. It would work, but if I talk about behavior, it would change from country to country, it would change from state to state, it would change from culture to culture. So that is why there's this debate that psychology is not a hard science, but rather a soft science or a social science. If you look at the degrees that are offered in psychology, they are both BSc, BA, that is Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor in Science, and both MA and MSc. But that is just a matter of discipline. It does not necessarily indicate that psychology is solely a science subject or an art subject. So there's one thing that I would like to say at this point is that psychology, in a way, is just an art to apply science. That this statement sort of brings together the science and arts aspect of this debate. Now we come to this now we come to the distinction between psychologist and psychiatrist. So again, these two terms are sometimes used interchangeably, but that just creates a lot of confusion because psychiatrists and psychologists are two distinct professions with two distinct set of qualifications that are needed. So a psychiatrist has a medical degree and can diagnose the patient with mental disorders and can prescribe medications. However, a psychologist cannot actually do that. Psychologists cannot diagnose a patient or they cannot prescribe medications. They may have a PhD, but they do not have a medical degree, so no medications. A psychiatrist again specializes in diagnosis and treatment of psychological disorders, and a psychologist provides psychotherapy involving behavior interventions. These two people can actually work together to help the patient or client in that case, but their roles are completely different. A psychiatrist cannot assume the role of psychologist, and a psychologist cannot assume the role of a psychiatrist. So they often work in collaboration where the psychologist offers behavioral interventions and the psychiatrist prescribed medications. And the process is usually back and forth in order to address the symptoms in the best way possible. The next is, now we come on the education track to psychology, as in if you want to pursue psychology in future, how do we do that? So you have to start planning early. After 10th standard, usually in most I think in most CBSE schools you have a choice for stream selection in 11th, when you're starting with your 11th standard. Psychology is offered in all three streams usually. So we have science, commerce, and arts. You can choose psychology regardless of the stream you choose. It would be beneficial to have statistics as a subject as well. So let's say economics, because that's where stats is involved in school. And maintaining good grades is obviously important. because if you look at the cutoff for psychology courses, you'll realize that they're not, as low as some people might think, given that it's an arts course. It's not. The cutoffs are usually high for this program. So if you get into an undergraduate program for psychology, you'll see that the program covers all modules, which means you'll get to study about different fields of psychology. So you'll have individual differences, you'll have research methods and stats, you'll have cognitive psychology, you'll have biopsychology, media psychology. So basically what the undergraduate program does is it gives you an introduction to different subfields of psychology so that you can make a better choice, or you can make an informed decision about which subfield would you like to pursue further. Again, maintaining good grades is important. And the other thing that's very important in your undergraduate program is to focus on stats and research. So what we do is, as psychology students, we think that, okay, we have taken up psychology and we are going to become mental health professionals. So we don't need to, understand or focus on research methods and stats, but that's not true at all. Because when you go on to do your postgraduate degree, you have to do a dissertation that requires you to have an understanding of research methods and stats. So that's one thing. The other thing is, you may or may not end up becoming a mental health professional. Psychology has a lot of options to offer. Even in order to become a mental health professional, you need specific qualifications. So that's not just one thing. So if you look at research methods and stats as a skill to develop, that would be rather useful in the future. So that if you are not, let's say, directly involved in mental health, or if you're not, say, involved directly in clinical psychology, you at least have some skills that you can apply to other work settings. Then postgraduate programs, what they do is, in India, we have both kinds of programs. One is generic, where it's either applied psychology or psychology, and one is either very specific. So let's say cognitive psychology, or a criminology for that matter. And then there is, in postgraduate programs, there is an opportunity to intern in different settings. And you also have to prepare a dissertation. That's important. So when I say intern in different settings, you'll either have to intern in a clinical setting, or you'll have to work under some counselor to get some experience. That's important. That's a requirement for the course. And you'll have to prepare a dissertation, which means you'll have to conduct a proper research study, which is where your research methods and stats knowledge will be very useful. Going on to the work settings and subfields, as you can see here, there are different work settings where a psychologist can work. So university and colleges, that's like an academic career. And schools and other educational settings, you could work as a counselor. Then there is obviously self-employed or freelance people. That would be me, who work as independent consultants on multiple projects and do other things as well. Then there is private organizations and NGOs. And then there is governmental organizations, where you can either work in the research field or you can develop interventions. So the idea here is to show you that there are multiple settings where your skills can be applied and knowledge of psychology. Then there are subfields of psychology. We'll cover them one by one, but as you can see here, there's the most popular one is clinical, and then there is cognitive and counseling, experimental and other research areas, social psychology, organizational, developmental, and so on. Now we'll look at the different subfields of psychology. So again, one of the most famous ones in our country is clinical psychology. Clinical psychologists, what they do is they diagnose and treat the patients accordingly. So we focus on mental illnesses or mental disorders, as they're called. So there's anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar, and so on. Then we research on possible treatment and causes of disorders. We practice in clinical settings or hospital settings. or we can teach we can choose to teach in universities, that is to have an academic career with my degree in clinical psychology, or I can do both. So I can also teach, have an academic career, and I can also work in a clinical or hospital setting. To become a clinical psychologist, a doctoral degree is extremely important. In India, we also have programs for MPhil. So in MPhil, you are given proper training where you work in a hospital setting, and you understand the daily workings of a clinical psychologist, and you get trained accordingly. For PhD, we have three major institutes in India. So there's Central Institute of Psychiatry in Jharkhand. There's National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Karnataka, and Institute of Human Behavior and Allied Sciences in Delhi. An eminent clinical psychologist would be Dr. Kamna Chibber, who is a cognitive behavioral therapist, and she's the head of the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences at Fortis Healthcare. Now, coming to counselors or counseling psychologists, so they deal with a variety of problems like marriage issues, family issues, career issues. You have career psychologists for that. You have counselors dealing with career planning and substance use. As counseling psychologists, we can work in schools, colleges, or universities, or we can work in hospitals and clinics, or have a private practice of our own, wherein I can give private and online sessions to people. Then the school counselors, I'm sure you must be aware with the workings of a school counselor, because it is important for schools to have at least one counselor these days. So the school counselors essentially help students with their everyday problems or adjustment issues in the class. They could also help students with their personal problems if it is affecting their academic studies. Then career counselors help take action on career and work related problems. Dr. Nisha Khanna is a famous marriage and family counselor. So she has her own private practice in Delhi, but she can also choose to work with other organizations. Now we have industrial or organizational psychologists. The aim of an IO psychologist is to understand how employees' behavior affect the workplace environment, and how the workplace environment affects the employees' behavior in return. So it's the interdependence between the employees and the workplace. Now, the IO psychologist would focus on things like job satisfaction, or factors that are positively affecting employees' motivation, or factors that are affecting the productivity. Because things like motivation to work or productivity eventually have an effect on the workplace environment and the outcome of the organization. So these are the important factors that an IO psychologist would study. It also helps the organization in recruitment, training, and promotional processes. It can hold interventions in times of organizational change. So IO psychologists can work with private or public organizations, corporate companies, government agencies. They can come on board as a freelance who would be there on a contract basis to hold a specific intervention, and then they would move on to another organization. One of the famous IO psychologists would be Fred Luthans, who also has a book on the subject. He's a management professor specializing in organizational behavior, and applies the principles of positive reinforcement to improve employee performance. The book is called Organizational Behavior, which was published in 1973. Then we have social psychologists. So that's me. We examine how an individual's social environment influences their behavior, thoughts, and feelings. We are interested in topics like attitude formation, prejudice, discrimination, basically everything that goes on in our society. What we usually do is, or what we would ideally like to do, is conduct research on such social phenomena and provide insight into ways to improve them, or ways to change this behavior. We can work in multiple fields. We can pursue an academic career, which would mean research and teaching. We can work in advertising, because advertisements also use a basic knowledge of psychology to influence consumers' behavior. Then we could also work with government agencies. We could work with non-government agencies. And so basically we can work in multiple settings, and we focus on societal issues. One of the prominent social psychologists is Dr. Purnima Singh, who works in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Delhi. Then we have community psychologists. So community psychologists focuses on a community as a whole and not just the individual. They help the community to address physical and mental health problems by designing mental health centers or designing rehabilitation programs or other interventions. They can work with a specific sect of the population, let's say like the elderly. What they do is they bring in research and practice to collaborate with the community members for community-based interventions. So as a community psychologist, I cannot work as an outsider with the community. I have to blend with the community by living with them for a particular period of time, so that they see me as one of their own members. And that's when I can actually design a proper intervention to help them. The community psychologists can work for mental health agencies, private organizations, and state governments. Neuropsychologists, or behavioral neuroscience as they say. So this field focuses on brain and hormonal processes that underlie our behavior. So the aim is to understand how a normal brain works to support cognition, emotion, and sensory motor function versus a brain that is, let's say, a brain of a person who has dementia. So if you will look at the scans of a normal functioning brain and of a brain of a person who is showing signs of dementia, you'll see stark differences, and that is what we study in behavioral neuroscience. So areas of interest include memory related problems, language deficits, executive functioning, and behavioral issues. They use techniques like PET scan, SPECT, fMRI. They can also assess and treat people, but they have to work with psychiatrists or with psychologists. They cannot work independently to treat the patient. They can work with people with brain injuries and facilitate their recovery. These are some of the other fields that some of the other subfields of psychology. So there's cognitive psychology that focuses solely on the study of mental processes. There's developmental that focuses on the physical, mental, emotional, and social development across the lifespan. So it studies a person as soon as they're born, so childhood through adulthood. Then there's educational psychology that focuses on the psychological aspects of educational processes, which is where the curriculum research and teacher training comes in. Then there is experimental field, which focuses only on lab research. Then there is cultural and cross-cultural psychology, which compares behavior from two different or from multiple cultures. Then there's quantitative method that focuses on methods and techniques for designing experiments and analyzing data. Then there is health psychology. There's sports psychology, engineering and architecture, forensic, rehabilitation, environmental, and evolutionary. So there are multiple fields to choose from. You just have to decide on your area of interest, look up the career track to be able to work in that field, keeping in mind the resources you have available in your, if you have available for yourself. Or let's say if you're in India and if you want to study in India, you may have to look up universities outside your state of residence. So if I'm living in Delhi and if I want to study cognitive psychology, I would have to move to Allahabad because that's where the course is offered. So there are multiple options to choose from. You just have to decide where your interest area lies. Now we'll come to psychology and economics. So psychology is an interdisciplinary field that is connected to many other fields. We'll see how. So psychology and economics, what they do is apply psychological insights into human behavior to understand their economic decision making. One of the great examples for this would be the nudge theory, wherein the companies or organizations subtly promote a product or a choice that they want you to make, altering your behavior, and you may even not know how that happened or if that happened for that matter. So for example, when you go and let's say if you're shopping in a mall, okay, and you buy something and you stand in line for making the at the counter for making the payment, you will see small products that are strategically placed around the counter, around the billing counter. So this is where the nudge theory comes in, because you look at that product, it's small, it can, it's small, it's relatively cheap, so you are more likely to buy it. And since you're standing in the queue, you might as well look at the products that are around you. So that's the nudge theory in action, where the products are strategically placed around the billing counter so that the consumers are more likely to look at it. Then psychology and public policy. So if you remember the happiness curriculum that was launched by the Delhi government for government schools, that was psychology and public policy, because it is the insights in students' behavior comes from psychology. The fact that there is a need for such a curriculum comes from psychology. Then there was Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So by introducing a policy, what we did was and by naming it Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and relating it back to Mahatma Gandhi, an icon in this country, we kind of made an emotional appeal to the people, and which to make them more likely to take this policy seriously. So that these are the two examples where psychology and public policy come together. What psychologists do is they use knowledge about human behavior to design, implement, and assess intervention programs. The next is psychology and politics. So this subfield is called political psychology. It's an interdisciplinary academic field. It focuses on politics, politicians, and political behavior from a psychological perspective. For example, politicians sometimes they use fear, hope, and patriotism to motivate the citizens to vote for their party. So let's say a political party endorsing a particular religion is an example of how psychology is being used to control the voting behavior of the citizens. That's one way where psychology and politics come together. So to sum up, psychologists can work either independently or collaborate with other fields to contribute to the society. They can work in multiple settings like hospitals, universities, government agencies, non-governmental agencies, political parties, advertising, marketing, and so on. Many universities, or I should say, multiple universities offer psychology courses in India at the undergraduate level. So we have Delhi University, we have Jamia Millia Islamia, Allahabad, University of Calcutta, Chennai University, Mumbai University, and so on. NCRT and the Rehabilitation Council of India also offer various diploma and certificate courses. So if you want to get into counseling or clinical, you need to have an RCI recognized degree, which means for clinical psychology, you need to do an MPhil from a RCI recognized institution. And for a counseling psychology, you need to have a diploma or a degree in counseling that is recognized, or you have recognized by RCI, and you have to register yourself with the RCI to be able to work as a counselor. For PhD, we have institutes like NIMHANS, IBHAS, and CIP, that's Central Institute of Psychiatry. So now you know that if you get a degree in psychology, or if you choose to pursue a degree in psychology, you eventually will end up working somewhere. And that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining in, and you can ask any questions if you have at this point in the chat box.
Okay, so we have quite a number of questions, Arshia. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let me just open the chat box here.
No, so it's not there in the chat box, it's in the Q&A,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I can actually facilitate it for you if you wish, or whichever way you are comfortable with.
You can facilitate it. I don't mind.
Perfect. So I'll start with the first one, Arshia.
Yeah.
Can you continue in psychology without opting it in school? So if I don't opt for psychology at school, can I still pursue it in my undergrad?
Yes. So as of now, to pursue psychology in undergraduation, you do not necessarily need to have psychology in school. Of course, if you did study psychology in school, it would be an added advantage because then you have basic knowledge. But you can pursue psychology for undergraduate without having studied in school. You'll just have to, work a little bit harder than the rest of them. That's it.
So this is an anonymous one. If you study psychology in a BA course for undergrad, can you study it as BSc in postgrad?
Yes. So I had a BA in applied psychology from Delhi University, and then I have an MSc in social and applied psychology from University of Kent. But even in India, if you have a BA, you can always go for MSc. That's not an issue. It's just a matter of discipline. The context or the course content is more or less similar.
So that takes us to the very next logical question, which is better, BA or BSc?
There is no answer to that. A BA course or a BSc course could essentially offer the same content or the same modules, but it's like I said, it's just a matter of discipline. BSc and BA, there is no difference regardless of what you choose.
Okay, so this next one is, can I do clinical psychology without opting science?
Yes, clinical psychology has nothing to do with science in itself. For becoming a psychiatrist, you would need to have science background because then you will be pursuing a medical degree. But to become a clinical psychologist, you do not need to have science or science background.
One. To pursue psychology in the future, are there better opportunities abroad?
That is a very difficult question to answer. I mean, in terms of opportunities, yes, maybe abroad has a lot more to offer, especially in specific subfields. But in terms of, let's say, opportunities where you can grow, India is definitely on the top because, there is an increasing need for mental health professionals. There is an increasing need for psychologists in general. So it depends on what subfield you choose.
The next one is, does a child psychologist prescribe medication?
No, it says, does a clinical psychologist. So no, a clinical psychologist cannot prescribe medication because we do not have a medical degree. And until and unless I have a medical degree, I cannot prescribe medication. That is completely unethical for me to do so.
I think this is something that you've clarified for the second time now.
Yeah.
I want the attendees to be a little more attentive, right? Repetition probably sometimes kills the flow. Someone wants to know how many years it takes to become a criminologist.
Again, a very difficult question to answer. First of all, a criminologist may not be the same as psychology with criminology. It's the fields are very different. And again, sometimes you can start working after getting a postgraduate degree. Sometimes you have, so let's say you have a postgraduate degree in criminology or psychology with criminology as your specialization, and you start working. But in order to progress in your career, you may need additional qualifications. So there is no set answer to how many years would it take me to become a psychologist or a clinical psychologist or a criminologist or any kind of expert in any subfield. I need to add on or keep learning in order to grow in my career. So there's no set answer to that.
Someone in the audience is actually looking at you explaining neuropsychology.
Yeah. So neuropsychology, okay, so let's say if I'm working with patients with dementia, I will have to look at their scans, and I will have to look at, so obviously dementia it's not curable at this stage, but you can always provide interventions to make their life easier. And you have to do that in collaboration with a neuropsychologist who can keep a track of their change, who can keep a track of changes in their physical brain. So that's when neuropsychology comes in. And then of course this is the treatment part of it, definitely, to understand the causes or the changes. So let's say early onset of dementia, what would be the changes in brain? Is there some sort of change that can predict if this person will eventually have dementia at a later stage? So that's where neuropsychology comes in. Yeah, next one.
So, are psychologists involved in HR?
Yes, IO psychologists are involved in HR, which is also why sometimes people with degrees in HR end up working as IO psychologists. So there's a lot of overlap between the two. But yes, they are involved in HR.
Okay, so the I and the O stood for industrial and organizational.
Yes.
Apologies, yes. I kind of rushed through it. To become a psychologist, what do you need to do now? What skills do you require?
Again, that's a very generic question. Psychologist, what kind of psychologist? If you want to become a counseling psychologist, I am pretty sure that you would not need the skills that I need as a social psychologist. So let's say if you want to become a counseling psychologist, you need to focus on your listening skills, or you need to focus, or you need to broaden your own understanding of, people's problems and adjustment issues. To become a clinical psychologist, you need to have a very good understanding of the disorders. And there is a whole book that clinical psychologists follow, that's called DSM-5, to diagnose the patients. But now the debate is coming up that since DSM-5 has been written by people in the West, it may not necessarily apply to our context, because we live in the East and our problems are different than theirs. We have different social problems, they have different social problems. So if you would ask me what you can do right now, I would say read. First of all, decide which subfield do you want to work in, and then just read about it. Read what are the skills that are needed and work with that.
Does it offer good money?
Again, what do you mean by good money? So it may not necessarily offer the same amount or same packages as, let's say, would be offered to an MBA student, or an actual medical practitioner. But it's a very difficult question to answer. It would depend where you actually end up working and at what stage have you started working. So sometimes people start working after completing their undergraduate degree. So there is a limit to what you can work with after with an undergraduate degree. So you would have to do a postgraduate in order to progress and in order to get paid more. The more experience you get, the more you can ask for and the more you get paid. So it's all interlinked, and there is no set amount that a clinical psychologist would be making or a counseling psychologist would be making. You can make a lot. It depends on your experience and your qualifications.
Is it safe to say that the starting is low, but
yes,
then there is a lot of you grow. So typically even in medicine,
yeah,
first few years is or there are so many other careers. But are we indicating that in general the money is not there, or we're saying the first few years?
The first few years is definitely low because you're still learning. See, you have to understand that psychology is about actual people. We also focus on animal behavior, but let's say if we are focusing on actual people, it's it's serious. As a counselor with my half baked knowledge, I cannot go out there and give people bad advice and be expected to get paid more or be expected to have a reputation. So yes, definitely starting point would be relatively low, but as you progress in your career, you can eventually, start earning more.
Okay. Would a psychiatrist be given the same training as a neuropsychologist?
I am not sure about this because I think, as far as I know, psychiatrists, if you have to study psychiatry, you have to start with the medical. You have to start on the medical track in itself. So maybe I can get back to you on that, and yeah, I can get back to you on that, but I'm not sure if they would be given the same training.
Perfect. I don't know why neuropsychology is coming so often. How can I pursue neuropsychology?
Again, I would have to get back to you on that because I'm not sure of the options that are available in our country in terms of, with regards to neuropsychology as a course.
Is maths and psychology related?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I know people would say no to that, but I would say it's definitely related. So when I say maths, I don't mean algebra, trigonometry, and so on. I mean basic maths, but stats. So when we have statistics, we have mathematical applications and principles of basic addition, subtraction, and so on. But yeah, maths background is not important, but definitely a stats background would definitely help a lot if you want to study psychology.
Okay. Purvi wants to understand the difference between community and social psychology.
So community and social psychology, I am focusing on the individuals and how their behavior affects the society, and society in itself affects the individual behavior. When it comes to community psychology, I am not going to look at an individual. I am going to look at the whole community, which means I will be very specific. So let's say I am looking, it could be just a small neighborhood. Let's say I want to provide some kind of intervention in some neighborhood, then I would not look at the people individually. I will have to look at them collectively as a community and how they come together, and as a community, what are their problems and so on. So that's the major difference.
Kanera wants to understand if industrial and organization psychology is a fading field.
Yes, in a way, yes, because a lot of HR people are taking up roles that are meant for IO psychologists. But as long as the overlap exists, so what this essentially means is you can do psychology postgraduate course with organizational psychology as your specialization, or you could do a course in HR and you both would be competing for the same job. It's not a fading field because it exists and it's very much there and it's important. It's definitely not a fading field. So let's say, given the pandemic, a lot of companies have had to take the decision to let the employees work from home. Now, when the employees start working from home, their productivity levels fluctuate, their motivation fluctuates. And how do big corporate companies deal with that? That's where the IO psychology comes in, right? Now, the person they hire would again depend on the qualification, experience, and the skills, which is why I said the skills are more important. Even though there is a lot of overlap between IO psychology as a course and HR, the skills that you have will, make you stand out. So it's not a fading field. It's definitely a very important field. but you can focus on the skills.
Okay, I want everyone to stop typing in their questions. I already have some 52 unanswered ones, and the repetitions we will have to excuse. So allow us next 5 minutes. No more questions. Let's try and complete whatever we have. This question is from Ipsa. She wants to understand what all fields require a doctorate degree.
I think it's not a question of fields, but a question of your work setting. So I work as an independent consultant. I am a social psychologist, but if I want to pursue an academic career, it is important that I have a doctorate in my field. Even though I may not require it right now to work as an independent consultant on research projects, I will need it if I want to pursue an academic career, which is, teach in universities or colleges for that matter. So yes, in India, I can teach in a college. So after postgraduate degree, you have to clear UGC NET in order to teach at the university level. I can teach, but my promotion and my growth would definitely require me to have a doctorate. So it depends on the kind of field that you're working in, and not it depends on the work setting, your workplace setting. So let's say if I want to continue working as a independent consultant, I do not need to have a doctorate degree, because what matters is my skills and what matters is my experience. I don't need to have a doctorate degree. But if I, again, like I said, if I want to pursue an academic career, if I want to teach, then I would need a doctorate degree. But yeah, clinical psychology is one field where you definitely need a doctorate in order to establish yourself and your career. You definitely need a doctorate. So that's one field. But other than that, it depends on where you would be working.
This is from a parent, Arsha, and I think it's being repeated, but nevertheless. The mother is asking that her daughter is in class 12 and pursuing humanities. Yeah. Can she still do an MSc?
Yes. So again, like I said, psychology is not solely a science subject or a social science subject. So you can always go for a BSc degree, even if you have humanities. It does not, you just need to have a background in psychology. You do not need science to pursue BSc.
Tanya wants to understand what percentage is required to pursue a psychology at undergraduate level.
Again, that's a difficult question to answer. So if you work with cutoffs, and if you look at the cutoffs in DU, you need to have at least 90%, and 90%, again, I'm being very liberal here, because there are colleges that start with 99% as their cutoff, or 98. So yeah, I think, so do not give your boards thinking that you want to pursue psychology, or you want to pursue English, or you want to pursue physics or BCom or anything. Just focus on giving your best, and just try and score as much as possible. Then you can always choose. Then you'll have the opportunity to take your pick. That's the best answer to this question.
Yeah, I kind of agree. What's the scope of neuropsychology?
Again, I will have to get back to you, because I'm not really aware about scope of neuropsychology or courses in neuropsychology in India.
Perfect. Looks good. When it comes to criminology, are there any colleges or universities offering courses in India?
So there is one, I think, university in Gujarat that offers a course in forensic psychology. I don't think I've come across a course specifically in criminology. Again, that is why I said there criminology and psychology. If you look at courses in abroad, you would see that criminology in itself is a totally separate course and has nothing to do with psychology. So forensic psychology is offered in India. That's what I know. Criminology, maybe you get some sort of certification course, but I don't think you have a proper course in the country.
Okay, so let me just scan a few questions because a lot of questions are coming in on colleges.
Yeah.
If your question is a very specific one, trying to understand which college, let me try and get these answers on a later date, right? You try and stick to areas which will help you understand psychology and the different areas of psychology and the kind of work that comes in, right? Nevertheless, I'll take this one from Guneet. She wants to understand whether it's advisable to pursue psychology in India or abroad.
If you have, okay, so a UK master's degree is not valid in India. It's not acceptable because a UK postgraduate degree is a 1-year program, and in India we have postgraduate degree for 2 years, right? The duration is 2 years. So that's one thing to look at if you're looking at programs in abroad, because there is no guarantee that if you go to abroad for your studies, you will eventually end up having a career there. Yes, that would be ideal in terms of, investment and returns, but it may not happen depending upon your chosen country to study and, their own employment rules and everything. That's one thing to consider. If I have to choose between India and abroad, that's again a very difficult question to answer, because it depends on you, right? If you have the resources and you want to go abroad and you want to settle there, then that's good. But if you think that you can go abroad to study and you can come back to India and make huge amount of money, you would be slightly disappointed, because like sir pointed out that, initially when you're starting off, you may not make as much money as you might think or as much you would like to. So that's I can't give any specific advice whether you should pursue in India or in abroad. It depends on the kind of resources you have, and it depends on your long-term plans eventually, whether you want to stay in India or whether you want to stay in abroad, or, whichever.
So this one is sports psychology. I'm not sure if I'm asking this right. Is sports psychology offered at undergraduate level?
No, at undergraduate level, you do not get a course that comes with a specialization. Why? Because undergraduate courses are designed to give you an introduction to all major subfields, so that you can make an informed decision about your career or about your further studies. At postgraduate level, there are very limited number of, or maybe 1 or 2 universities that offer, but it's not a course in sports psychology. It will be a course in psychology with sports psychology as a specialization. So yes, I think there are 1 or 2 universities that do offer that.
Actually, this is a very specific question with respect to UK admissions. Do all colleges accept BA students for BSc courses? Just wanting to understand, Nishta, is it specific to psychology, or are you looking at portability across? So I don't think, Isha, if you can, but yeah, would you like to take this question in absence of the...
Yeah, so what, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is basically, can all students who are pursuing BA, can they get into MSc?
Yes, I did BA and I got into MSc. It does not matter. What they look at is your when you wish to pursue psychology at postgraduate level in abroad, most of the time they will look at your definitely they'll look at your overall grade. They'll look at your stats knowledge, because some courses in abroad revolve around stats and research methodology quite a lot. So they have a huge chunk or huge module dedicated to it, which means they will look at your knowledge of stats or your marks in stats and RM. So that's another thing. But yeah, it does, like even in India, if you do a BA in psychology, you can get into a course that offers an MSc degree in psychology. It does not make a difference.
Someone wants to understand the difference between psychiatry and clinical psychology?
Right. So, like I said, as a psychiatrist, my job is to diagnose the patient and refer them to clinical psychologist for behavioral intervention. So, if a schizophrenic comes in, so that's a psychotic disorder, which means I am disassociated with my reality, which means I am having hallucinations that can be controlled only using the medication. So if I'm at a very late stage in my diagnosis, then the psychiatrist will prescribe medications and may actually have to keep the patient in the hospital for quite some time. So once those symptoms that are being controlled through the medication are improving, then the psychiatrist will refer the patient to the clinical psychologist in order to introduce behavior modification or behavioral intervention for them to, go back to their life in a smooth transition.
Jobs with government as a psychology student.
So mostly when government institutions have vacancies for psychology, people with a background in psychology, you need UGC NET in most cases. You can work on research projects, you can work in teaching, you can work on designing curriculum in terms of education for educational purposes. So sometimes NCERT has a lot of vacancies. Some of them do not require you to have UGC NET, but most of them require BA or MA in psychology. So that's there. There are a lot of opportunities, of course, but when it comes to working on research projects with government agencies, you need to clear UGC NET before you can apply for these positions.
Okay. We'll probably spend 5 more minutes. The list doesn't stop, right? So we'll take the last 3 questions now, and then figure out how do we take other questions. Can PCM plus psychology? So I'm reading it verbatim. PCM plus psychology beneficial for a student? Are there any options?
PCM is physics, chemistry, maths, right?
Yes.
It does not make a difference, to be honest. I had humanities in school, and I chose to pursue psychology for my undergrad. In fact, if anything, in my experience, the science students had a harder time understanding psychology. So these were people who had science in school but did not have psychology. So what happened was they were always looking for objective answers. They always wanted one answer to the question, and psychology does not give you that. Psychology is more subjective than physics, chemistry. So chemistry, if I add two atoms of hydrogen or two atoms of oxygen, I think you always get water, right? If you add 3 atoms of hydrogen and 2 of oxygen, then you may get something else altogether. But in psychology, it's not like that. Everything is in a spectrum. So if you have only science and no psychology, then you may have a harder time in pursuing undergrad, but there is no added advantage. If you have psychology, yes, it's an advantage. If you don't have psychology, then yes, you'll have to focus more, but it does not matter what stream you're coming from. That's one thing. But so this was about pursuing the course. But when it comes to admission criteria, I think so when it comes to DU, colleges have their own specific guidelines. So sometimes they offer relaxation of certain percentage, let's say 1% or 2%, to people coming from science background for psychology. So that's something you'll have to look up as and when the guidelines come in, because they keep changing every year. But other than that, there is no advantage or no disadvantage of the stream that you choose.
This is an interesting one, Harsha. If a child is keen on law and psychology,
yeah,
is it advisable to do a 5-year law program and then psychology, or do a BA in psychology followed by a 3-year law degree?
So it is a good question, but there is no right answer to it, because so when I study psychology first, I will get a little perspective on mental health, on psychology, and then I will choose. And then if I pursue law, that perspective will come with me. But if I study law first and then go to psychology, then the law perspective will come with me. There is no right or wrong way to go about this. You can either study law first or you can study psychology first. I've known people who did psychology first and then they went on to study law. I don't think I've come across someone who did law and then did psychology. But yeah, there is no right answer here. You can choose whatever you wish to study first.
Actually, these are two different career tracks.
Yeah.
That we need to understand. Point number 2, you'll also need to understand psychology as a subject is available at some of the national law schools, right? So it might not be an either or situation. What primarily you need to understand is what is it you wish to pursue as a career, because psychology as a subject will also give you some of the hard skills which will help you well in your law career, right? However, you need to be clear. So one, an easy option is to look at, if you're looking at law as your primary goal, you can study psychology as a subject. So it might not be a 3+3 or a 5+3 kind of an option. The 5-year law integrated program and a diploma or studying psychology as an elective is a possibility.
Also, right? I think the point that you mentioned, that you have to be clear, and the fact that these are two separate career tracks, it is absolutely very important, because I don't see a job position or a career track where you can where you come and work. So there is no intersection per se in terms of jobs where for law and psychology. So you can work with law and mental health. I think it's much better that you first decide where you want to end up or what you want to end up as working. So do you want to become a lawyer or do you want to become a psychologist? That is, I think, one of the most important things for you to decide before you decide which course would you want to pursue first or second.
Okay, let's try and take the last question in. I will skim through.
So there is one question that I would like to answer. Someone is asking, you said a UK degree is not accepted in India, but didn't you study at Kent? So I did study at Kent. I got back. I did study at Kent. I gained a lot of skills and I got back, and I may not be able to do the same jobs that my peers are able to do who did their postgraduate in India, but I have skills that make me stand out, which means I can do certain jobs that they can't. Which is why I am saying again and again that you have to focus on the skills you're gaining and not just the knowledge that you're getting. Because essentially what I have studied and what they have studied is similar. There is a lot of overlap, right? But the skills that I have and what they have is different. So you have to focus on your skills and how you can put them to use.
Okay. However hard that we try, I am sorry, but we will not be able to take up, the 54 odd questions which are still pending with us. Let me figure out and let you know the mechanism of how we're going to revert back to you with your answers, right? So thank you so much, Arsha, for all your time today. I'm sure, all the kids had a good learning experience. If you have any feedback for today's session, please go back to the chat window Would love to hear it from you, or else see you on Wednesday for all those who are looking at a career in mathematics or career options. And mind you, mathematics with one takeaway for many of you is psychology and maths also goes together. And so that's about it for today. Thank you so much, Arsha, and bye-bye everyone.
Thank you for having me.